Okay, let's find out what happens in the underworld. I'm not sure what I was expecting, pearly gates or a big black portcullis or something, but the entrance to the underworld looked like a cross between airport security and the Jersey Turnpike. There were three separate entrances under one huge black archway that said, "You are now entering Airbus." Each entrance had a pass-through metal detector mounted with security cameras. Beyond this were toll booths manned by black-robed ghouls like Charon. The howling of the hungry animal was really loud now, but I couldn't see where it was coming from. The three-headed dog, Kirbus, who was supposed to guard Hades' door, was nowhere to be seen. Is that how you say his name? Kerberos? The dead queued up in three lines, two marked "Attendant on duty" and one marked "Es Death." The Es Death line was moving right along. The other two were crawling. "What do you figure?" I asked Annabeth. "The first line must go to Asphodel." Sorry. You're much better at reading those words than I am. She said, "No contest. They don't want to risk judgment from the court because it might go against them." "There's a court for dead people?" "Yeah, three judges. They switch around who sits on the bench. King Minos, Thomas Jefferson, Shakespeare, people like that. Sometimes they look at a life and decide that person needs a special reward, the fields of asylum. Sometimes they decide on punishment. But most people, well, they just lived. Nothing special, good or bad. So they go to the fields of asphodel. Sorry. "And do what?" Grover said. "Imagine standing in a wheat field in Kansas forever." "Harsh," I said. "Not as harsh as that," Grover muttered. "Look." A couple of black-robed ghouls had pulled aside one spirit and were frisking him at the security desk. The face of the dead man looked vaguely familiar. "He's that preacher who made the news, remember?" Grover asked. "Oh, yeah, I did remember now. We'd seen him on TV a couple of times at the Yancey Academy dorm. He was this annoying televan- televangelist from upstate New York who'd raised millions of dollars for orphanages and then got caught spending the money on stuff in his mansion, like gold-plated toilet seats and an indoor golf course. He'd died in a police chase when his Lamborghini, for the Lord, went off a cliff." I said, "What are they doing to him?" "Special punishment from Hades," Grover guessed. "The really bad people get his personal attention as soon as they arrive. The kindly ones will set up an eternal torture for him." The thought of the Furies made me shudder. I realised I was in their home territory now. Old Mrs. Dodds would be licking her lips with anticipation. "But if he's a preacher," I said, "and he believes in a different hell—" Grover shrugged. "Who says he's seeing this place the way we're seeing it? Humans see what they want to see. They're very stubborn, persistent, that way." We got closer to the gates. The howling was so loud now it shook the ground at my feet, but I still couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Then, about 15 metres in front of us, the green mist shimmered. Standing just where the path split into three lanes was an enormous, shadowy monster. I hadn't seen it before because it was half transparent, like the dead. Until it moved, it blended with whatever was behind it. Only its eyes and teeth looked solid, and it was staring straight at me. My jaw hung open. All I could think to say was, "It's a Rottweiler!" I'd almost imagined Kerberos as a big black mastiff, but he was obviously a purebred Rottweiler, except, of course, that he was twice the size of a woolly mammoth, mostly invisible, and he had three heads. The dead walked right up to him, no fear at all. The attendant on duty lines parted on either side of him. The Es Death spirits walked right between his front paws and under his belly, while they could do without even crouching. "I'm starting to see him better," I muttered. "Why is that?" "I think," Annabeth moistened her lips, "I'm afraid it's because we're getting closer to being dead." The dog's middle head craned towards us. It sniffed the air and growled. "It can smell the living," I said. "But that's okay," Grover said, trembling next to me, "because we have a plan." "Right," Annabeth said. I'd never heard her voice sound quite so small. "A plan." We moved towards the monster. The middle head snarled at us, then barked so loud my eyeballs rattled. Can you understand it?" I asked Grover. "Yeah," he said, "I can understand it." What's it saying? I don't think humans have a four-letter word that translates exactly. I took the big stick out of my backpack, a bedpost I'd broken off Krusty's safari. I don't know why I'm having trouble reading this sentence. Let me try it again. I took the big stick out of my backpack, a bedpost I'd broken off Krusty's Safari Deluxe floor model. I held it up and tried to channel happy dog thoughts towards Carabius. All Po commercials, cute little puppies, fire hydrants. I tried to smile like I wasn't about to die. Hey, big fella, I called up. I bet they don't play with you much. Growl. Good boy, I said weakly. I waved the stick. The dog's middle head followed the movement. The other two heads were trained their eyes on me, completely ignoring the spirits. I had Carabius's undivided attention. I wasn't sure that was a good thing. Fetch! I threw the stick into the gloom. A good, solid throw. I heard it go kaplush in the river Styx. Carabius stared at me unimpressed. His eyes were baleful and cold. So much for the plan. Carabius was now making a new kind of growl, deeper down in his three throats. Grover said, Percy? Yeah? I just thought you'd want to know. Yeah. Carabius, he's saying we've got 10 seconds to pray to the god of our choice. After that, well, he's hungry. Wait, Annabeth said. She started rifling through her pack. Uh-oh, I thought. 5 seconds, Grover said. Do we run now? Annabeth produced a red rubber ball the size of a grapefruit. It was labelled Waterland Denver Co. Before I could stop her, she'd raised the ball and marched straight up to Carabius. She shouted, See the ball? You want the ball? Sit! Carabius looked as stunned as we were. All three of his head cocked sideways, 6 nostrils dilated. Sit! Annabeth called again. I was sure that at any moment she would become the world's largest milk-bone dog biscuit, but instead Carabius licked his 3 sets of lips, shifted on his haunches, and sat, immediately crushing a dozen spirits who had been passing underneath him in the Esdeath line. The spirits made muffled hisses as they dissipated like the air let out of tyres. Annabeth said, Good boy. She threw the ball. He caught it in his middle mouth. It was barely big enough for him to chew, and the other head started snapping at the middle, trying to get the new toy. Drop it, Annabeth ordered. Carabius's head stopped fighting and looked at her. The ball was wedged between 2 of his teeth like a tiny piece of gum. He made a loud, scary whimper and dropped the ball, now slimy and bitten nearly in half, at Annabeth's feet. Good boy! She picked up the ball, ignoring the monster, spit all over it. She turned towards us. Go now! Esdeath line! It's faster! I said. But no! She ordered, in the same tone she was using on the dog. Grover and I inched forward warily. Carabius started to growl. Stay! Annabeth ordered the monster. If you want the ball, stay. Carabius whimpered, but he stayed where he was. What about you? I asked Annabeth as we passed her. I know what I'm doing, Percy, she muttered. At least, I'm pretty sure. Grover and I walked between the monster's legs. Please, Annabeth, I prayed. Don't tell him to sit again. We made it through. Carabius wasn't any less scary looking from the back. Annabeth said, Good dog. She held up the tattered red ball and probably came to the same conclusion I did. If she rewarded Carabius, there'd be nothing left for another trick. She threw the ball anyway. The monster's left mouth immediately snatched it up, only to be attacked by the middle head, while the right head moaned in protest. While the monster was distracted, Annabeth walked briskly under its belly and joined us at the metal detector. How did you do that? I asked her, amazed. Obedience school, she said breathlessly, and I was surprised to see there were tears in her eyes. When I was little, at my dad's house, we had a Doberman. Never mind that, Grover said, tugging at my shirt. Come on! We were about to bolt through the Esdeath line when Carabius moaned pitifully from all 3 mouths. Annabeth stopped. She turned to face the dog, which had done a 180 to look at us. Carabius panted expectantly, the tiny red ball in pieces in a puddle of drool at its feet. Good boy, Annabeth said, but her voice sounded melancholy and uncertain. The monster's head turned sideways, as if worried about her. I'll bring you another ball soon, Annabeth promised faintly. Would you like that? The monster whimpered. I didn't need to speak dog to know Kerberos was still waiting for the ball. Good dog. I'll come visit you soon, I promise. Annabeth turned to us. Let's go. Grover and I pushed through the metal detector, which immediately screamed and set off flashing red lights. Unauthorized possessions! Magic detected! Kerberos started to bark. We burst through the Esdeath gate, which started even more alarms blaring, and raced into the underworld. A few minutes later, we were hiding, out of breath in the rotten trunk of an immense black tree, as security guards scuttled past, yelling for backup from the Furies. Grover murmured, Well, Percy, we have learnt. What have we learned today? The three-headed dogs prefer red rubber balls over sticks? No, Grover told me. We've learned that your plans really, really bite. I wasn't sure about that. I thought maybe Annabeth and I had both had the right idea. Even here in the underworld, everybody, even monsters, needed a little attention once in a while. I thought about that as we waited for the ghouls to pass. I pretended not to see Annabeth wipe a tear from her cheek as she listened to the mournful keening of Kerberos in the distance, longing for his new friend. Oh. At least they made it to the underworld, though. Next week, we will start chapter 19, which is We Find Out the Truth, sort of. Hope you enjoyed listening to Percy Jackson this week. I've really enjoyed reading it again.